This is Lauren Laughs, a podcast dedicated to lore Olympus and Greek mythology. In this episode, we're discussing chapters 177 through 179, cookie theories, and the myth where Minthe gets turned into a mint plant. Find us on SoundCloud at Lauren Laughs Podcast and YouTube under Lauren Laughs. I'm Sarah, also known as Hekate.
And I'm Greg, also known as King Pluto 97.
Okay, we're starting off with this summary. So, lawyers and security seem surprised and shocked that Thanatos is in court. We also see that Apollo is also watching and hasn't left. Hera is also watching from outside the courtroom, possibly from at home. Hades starts to cross-examine Thanatos, who was embarrassed, but still supports the nepotism belief he has. He begins to panic once Hades says that Persephone won him at chess, and we see Zeus and Poseidon agree that winning a bet is an acceptable way to win a job. He had little control, basically. So Thanatos slips up by revealing that he saw the contract signed by Hera. During this, he starts to think of Daphne and fully admits that he did sneak into Hades' office and through Hades' desk. Hades asks what defines the special treatment Thanatos is complaining about, and reminds him that Persephone almost got strangled in Tower 4. Thanatos internally struggles, remembering that Daphne asked him about why he cares about Persephone getting a job at the Underworld Corps so much. We think this is the driving force behind how he'll change for the better and redeem himself in the future. Hades reveals to the court how Thanatos' stance falls flat, since we see in the flashback Nyx drops him off at the Underworld Corp in the 1920s as help because Hades looked overworked, and Hades became his mentor and guardian, putting young Thanatos under his care as his ward, adding another complicated layer to their relationship. Does Thanatos resent Persephone because Hades started to pay more attention to yet another person that wasn't him? The meaning of Persephone's name is also brought up again, and Thetis is brought up just as she bursts in with Minthe, who she broke into Hades' house to get. Thetis starts a ridiculous sob story about murder until Persephone interrupts, explaining that Minthe isn't dead at all. She just doesn't quite know how to reverse the curse that she put on her yet. She just doesn't quite know how to reverse the curse that she put on her yet. Thanatos explodes at Thetis. Sorry. Thanatos.
No, it's okay.
I got distracted because Oliver walked into the room.
Your cat.
Yeah. Thanatos explodes on Thetis, explaining angrily that this was mostly a plot to get Minthe back with Hades, so that she can have someone to hang out with when Zeus took her to the country club.
Panicking, Zeus asks them to stay on topic, but Thanatos continues ripping into Thetis, saying that she only kept Minthe around because she knew she was vulnerable and could put her down and control her, especially if she started to do better than Thetis could. I can't help thinking that Minthe is hearing this, and while really regretting not listening to Hades when he told her that Thetis wasn't a good friend. How will this affect her when or if she's changed back into a nymph? Will she have a chance to work on herself like Thanatos is trying to? Thetis drops Thanatos in the midst of this, saying it was his idea to go to Helios for his account in the first place, and that he also broke into Persephone's room. This makes Persephone understandably upset as she bursts out, "Why does all of Olympus think it's okay to go into my room?" foreshadowing her assault at the hands of Apollo, and giving Hades more of an inkling of why she doesn't like cameras, as he asks who else has done that without her permission. Artemis, Hestia, and Athena show great disapproval, shouting at Thanatos, and Zeus, who is bored at this point, entertains himself by turning against Persephone, using the ledger Thanatos stole from her, and paranoidly saying that she has detailed plans, the mortals she accidentally killed in her act of wrath, and other information within the ledger to undermine Hades' authority and overthrow him. Cookie theories. Hera is watching from outside the courtroom, possibly at home. Will she fight with Zeus after one of his mistresses turned up and it was revealed that he was taking Thetis to the country club? Does Thanatos resent Persephone because she was yet another person or thing that Hades started to pay more attention to that wasn't him? Again, I can't help thinking that Minthe can hear and can see, just like Hekate mentioned, and that she's really regretting not listening to Hades when he said Thetis wasn't a good friend for her, and I wonder how that will affect her if she gets changed back. Like, will she work on herself? Does she even deserve a redemption arc? And will she be punished like Thanatos is bound to be by Hades? Since this is actually for most parts an underworld crime, will the trial be relocated? It's simply because Zeus tried to exert power and show that he was a powerful king that it ended up being in the Olympus courts anyway, because he didn't inform Poseidon and Hades properly until, like, the day before they were summoned to court.
So, now we're entering into the myth segment. Minthe tries to seduce Hades and gets turned into a plant by Dread Queen Persephone. While Minthe resided on the river of the underworld, it was said that she had a relationship with Hades. Most retellings say that this was before he was married to Persephone. However, in other tellings of the myth, after Hades and Persephone are married, Minthe, who is in love with Hades, tries to get him to have an affair. In another version, it's Hades who was attracted by Minthe's beauty, and she uses that to try and get him to have an affair with her. Either way, Persephone finds out, catching Minthe seducing her husband, and angrily turns Minthe into the mint plant by stepping on her with all of her might.
Everything we've been shown in the comics so far has been in the past with Minthe, so that time that he took Minthe to Hebe's 8th birthday party, and he had that fight because she was wearing an inappropriate dress, and when Thanatos and Thetis argue about, like, Zeus taking her to the country club, it does show, like, in a panel that, she's on a lounger and she's drinking a drink, and Minthe is there too, so it must be something that either happened regularly when Hades and Minthe were together, but it hasn't happened again since then, because obviously Minthe is a plant now.
Well, it's interesting. I wouldn't have actually thought as a kind of a weird side note. Are we supposed to gather from this that Zeus was taking both of them to the country club, or are we gathering from this that
I think that Hades and Poseidon would go to the country club together and, like, bring their wives, except for Minthe wasn't really a wife, and that she kind of, like, has a complex issue with that. You know, she doesn't want to be treated like a nymph, which she is, which is a disadvantage because nymphs are thought of as less. And, like, at the same time, like, even Thetis says, you know, like, crying's for wives, and that, like, Minthe will never be a good queen, and things like that. So Minthe is kind of stuck in, like, I'm just a nymph, and then she constantly tries to bring Hades down with her verbal and physical abuse, but, like, he'll always be more than her because he's a king and, she's not. But then she also didn't want to be his queen because she has, like, commitment issues. So, she's still struggling even as a plant, I guess, because, like, she's realizing that everything she thought, like, even Thetis, like, they had this sort of, like, bitchy relationship, but, like, Thetis just turns around straight away and she's like, oh, like, Thetis isn't a good friend. Like, she's shown her true colours. Because I don't think she realises, because I think only Hekate, Hades, and Persephone know that Minthe can actually see and hear. She's just, like, plant-shaped. So
Well, she originally thought that Minthe was dead, so she probably didn't necessarily believe it. Like, she probably doesn't understand completely that she can hear.
Yeah. But, like, I mean, that's probably going to be, like, a really messed up thing for, like, because, like, even Thanatos says that, like, Minthe is really insecure and that Thetis constantly kept putting her down. And, like, I can just imagine, like, can you imagine if somebody, like, said, oh, like, she's dead and, like, it's your fault, and then go on to say, like, to find out that you're just being used by that person or that, like, that you thought was a friend, you're going to be, like, really, really confused.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think of Artemis in a way, because her mother's doing the exact same thing. Like, not telling her the whole truth and not listening to her and, like, trying to control her.
Yeah.
Although I think probably Leto is worse because she's probably older and has done it for a longer time.
I'd imagine she's been doing that to her children pretty much their entire lives.
Yeah.
A Minthe redemption arc.
I mean, like, I think this is something that everyone's been talking about since, like, we discovered how abusive Minthe was, like, in the early chapters. Everyone was like, oh, maybe she deserves a redemption arc. Because there are some, like, rare moments in the chapters when you go back and you read them that actually, even when she gets sent home by Hekate, or when they go out clubbing and, like, Thetis gets her drunk, and then she's like, oh, I missed Hades' dinner, I have to go and see him, and then Thetis is like, oh, no, you don't, like, blow him off, like, the only way of keeping him, like, as your, like, wallet and your, like, meal ticket is that you have to be mean to him. But I think maybe that's just what Thetis wanted her to do, because she thought that, because Minthe said that Hades was going to propose to her, and Thetis is kind of the side piece of a king that's married, so she can't go any further, whereas if Hades and Minthe did get married, like, Minthe would have technically outranked her. Like, she would have been queen. And, like, that would make Thetis just, like, another mistress of Zeus. If it wasn't for Minthe's, like, 'cause she has commitment issues. I don't know whether she actually has commitment issues or whether she's just been told, like, a million times by Thetis that, she wouldn't make a good queen. Because I feel like there's a lot of, like, stigma around, like, nymphs in the comic. Like, even Thanatos says about Persephone, oh, like, she's just an airhead hick from the mortal realm. And, like, even Daphne had to point out, like, I'm from the mortal realm. Like, there seems to be, like, a animosity towards nymphs. Like, they're treated like a lower class.
Mm-hmm.
And often, like, servants and stuff to the gods. So I think, like, Thetis tried to use that against, like, Minthe even mentioning that, you know, like, Persephone's so cute, look at her ears, and then, like, she makes fun of Minthe. She's like, oh, do you ever think about having plastic surgery done? And she starts, like, making fun of her while she's getting her drunk.
Yeah. Well, or at the bare minimum, sort of picking at probably her insecurities in general, but...
Yeah.
Anyway. I don't think there was anything else. I was just double checking.
I mean, what do you think about the trial? Do you think it will be relocated?
No. I don't.
I
feel like Zeus will make some kind of excuse and try and show some weird level of power to because he was already trying to say, like, oh, Persephone, when Persephone was large and they were talking about why she built the tree or, you know, made the tree or whatever, he said something to the effect, like, he pretended, what was it, what was it that she said? It was something about, like, I've built this tree, you know, basically as like a...
Irritate the god Zeus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I imagine he'll continue to try and he'll nitpick things like that to try and justify why it should be kept in Olympus.
That it makes it sound good, but, like, everyone is kind of, like, sitting there, like... Almost like I feel like quite a lot of people are just like, okay, we're watching this happen, but it doesn't. It's not realistic. Because, again, Zeus is incredibly paranoid, and, like, he wants to try and, like, make everyone look bad if it makes him look good. So, I mean, I think, technically, Hades could have it relocated. You know, because, the only crime is that, like, there were souls that Persephone killed accidentally. But that technically makes it an underworld crime, apart from the fact that, you know, she didn't have a permit for the act of wrath, which is just something I think, you know, personally headcanon that the three gods decided, because otherwise I would have too many dead souls, there needs to be, like, a permit system, so if a god has to commit an act of wrath, then it needs to be, like, carefully accounted for. I think that would be what Zeus could try and use, but then, in general, because it's about shades, then it would be
well, who signs off?
Underworld crime.
Who signs off on an act of wrath? It sounds like the person who would have signed off on it, or whoever would have maybe potentially controlled that act of wrath taking place in the mortal realm. It sounded like that was Zeus, and I thought maybe that was kind of a big part of why he was bringing the trial up in the first place. Yes, she killed mortals and hid it, you know, from Hades and that sort of thing, but more specifically, I think it was she did an act of wrath that wasn't pre-approved, and they hid it from Zeus. So
yeah, but, like, you know, I don't think it's the first time someone's done that. I think Zeus just got a bee in his bonnet about Persephone, and he wants to sort of slam every charge he can think of off the top of his head on her, because he doesn't like her. And I think part of the reason why he doesn't like her is that he resents Demeter, because, again, I think we mentioned it in the last episode, Demeter is the only one that's told him no when, you know, he was trying to get her to hide his mistresses, and in response he ended up, like, burning, you know, fields and fields of her crops. Like,
it also just be because so many people like Persephone and don't really seem to like Zeus as much.
Well, I mean, no wonder. He's kind of, like, egotistical, and, like, he kind of, like, he's a giant man-child. He doesn't really like when people tell him what to do. He automatically thinks that he demands respect and that, everyone should listen to him. And just, just saying that about, like, his character, it just kind of, like, screams insecure, but also kind of makes you want to roll your eyes. Like, come on, like, this is his personality. It's kind of irritating.
Yeah.
And, like, the fact that usually, like, Zeus and Poseidon, when they had that meeting about, like, Persephone, with the whole, like, the pamphlet thing about, like, the whole dossier on Persephone, and all of the information was from Thanatos and Minthe and Thetis, and then also from Helios, who could totally be lying just because, he gets to rest a little bit while he tells this story, and then maybe if Hades and Persephone, end up, like, she ends up getting into trouble, that means that there might not be, like, a spring, which means that maybe he won't have to do as much sunshine, and therefore he gets to, like, slack off. But also, like, because Zeus and Poseidon mentioned, they absolutely hate,
Yeah.
Helios absolutely hates the gods.
Yeah.
And, like, Zeus and Poseidon also say they hate when Zeus gets like that, so it's obviously something they're used to. But, like, Poseidon seemed really, really cross, which is, almost out of character for him, because he's quite easygoing. But then, he seemed genuinely annoyed that, Zeus hadn't mentioned it at all. And then, like, they just get summoned to a meeting. And then it's, like, these trumped-up charges to Persephone because she killed mortals. And then, like, even what he says at the end of those panels was, she has to be taught a lesson because, I need to gain power, I need to be more popular, and this will be showing myself to be a good king. And then, like, Hades and Poseidon just exchange a look. Like, what the hell? Like, they know this is complete nonsense.